Last year marked the 350th anniversary of the birth of Isaac Watts, the man recognized as the unrivaled father of English hymnody. However, his composing of many of the hymns we still sing today is only a small portion of this uniquely gifted man's story. He was a scholar of wide reputation whose treatise on logic served as the standard university text at Oxford, Cambridge, and Harvard for generations. He was quoted by Charles Dickens in David Copperfield, by Herman Melville in Moby Dick, by Lewis Carroll in Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, and by Charles Haddon Spurgeon in The Treasury of David. Isaac Watts was a gifted preacher, careful theologian, and ardent apologist, but first and foremost, he was a dissenter. Dissenter was the label given to those people living in England in the late 1600s who refused to accept the teachings and edicts handed down by the Church of England. Also known as nonconformists, the Anabaptists, Quakers, Methodists, Presbyterians, along with others, were often persecuted for their beliefs. Fines, imprisonment, banishment, and sometimes even death were the consequences awaiting dissenters who refused to accept the religious laws of the land as dictated by the Church of England. The Puritan parents of Isaac Watts Jr. felt the sting of the dissenter label, and about the time of his birth in Southampton on July 17, 1674, his father, Isaac Watts Sr., was imprisoned. The story is told that his wife, Sarah, nursed baby Isaac on a stone outside the prison. In time, Isaac Sr. was released, and the young couple soon discovered they had a child prodigy on their hands. He began learning Latin at the age of 4, Greek at 9, French at 10, and Hebrew at 13. From his earliest youth, he became so enamored with rhyme and verse, he was once scolded by his father for repeatedly making rhymes in everyday conversation. His response was, "Oh, Father, do some pity take, and I will no more verses make." Recognizing his exceptional intellect, a doctor and several prominent Southampton businessmen offered a scholarship at the prestigious Oxford or Cambridge universities, but this would have required him to be ordained in the Church of England, which as a dissenter, he could never agree to. Instead, at age 16, he entered a nonconformist college in London, known as Stoke Newington Academy. Watts left the academy at age 20 and returned to the home in London where his parents now lived, and remained there 2 years, writing many of the more than 600 hymns composed during his lifetime. Although hymns have been sung for nearly 100 years by German Christians, most of the English-speaking world rejected any type of song other than an actual psalm being used as part of a worship service. Frustrated with the heartless psalm singing of his time, young Watts sometimes criticized the singing at his church. Listening to his concerns one day, Watts' father challenged him. "Well then, young man, why don't you give us something better to sing?" He rose to the challenge by writing his first hymn at age 20, entitled, "Behold the Glories of the Lamb." It was well received by the congregation of the Mark Lane Independent Chapel, where he would also preach his first sermon at age 24 and eventually become senior pastor, and remain there until his death in 1748. The popularity of Isaac Watts' hymns caused a tempest in his day. English congregations predominantly sang psalms, so singing verses that were of human composure, such as "When I Survey the Wondrous Cross," caused great controversy. One man complained, "Christian congregations have shut out divinely inspired psalms and taken in Watts' flights of fancy." Some said Watts' hymns were too worldly, since they were not based on the Psalms. The issue split churches, including one in Bedford, England, that was once pastored by John Bunyan. The controversy extended to America, where in May 1789, Reverend Adam Rankin told the General Assembly of the Presbyterian Church meeting in Philadelphia, "I have ridden horseback all the way from my home in Kentucky to ask this body to refuse the great and pernicious error of adopting the use of Isaac Watts hymns in public worship in preference to the Psalms of David." We don't know of Watts' reaction to these criticisms, other than to continue writing songs including paraphrases to nearly all the actual Psalms, some of which are still widely sung today. "O God, our help in ages past" is a paraphrase of Psalm 90. "Joy to the world" is from Psalm 98. "Jesus shall reign" from Psalm 72. A frail man, Watts' health began to decline at an early age, and at the end of his life could only preach occasionally as his health allowed, until his passing in 1748. His legacy continues, as it has for over 3 centuries, to spread the gospel and encourage the people of God through his hymns of the faith.